May 2nd at 6:30, May 2nd, 2024, 6:30 p.m. Thank you all for coming. I guess we'll start, part of the agenda, we're gonna start with just introductions, so I'll start. I'm Andy Marco, I'm representing the Board of Selectmen. I've lived in town most of my life, spent some good years out in California when I was young and was smart enough to come back here. I did serve with the Wellington #2 back in 1972. When Dan Avery was chief, Dick Claus was still driving his old police car. And then things were different back then. I did some Indian tanks in the field when they used to burn the fields. And I got to do the foam thing when George Chase's tire thing burned up. And I got to spray the foam. That's the extent of, I did go to the fire training school for one weekend, and that was the extent of my involvement with Wellington #2. Okay. And that's.
My name is James Knight. I've been born and raised in Wellington. Part of many generations of Wellington Hill. Currently president and captain. Not much else to say.
Pete Letitich, 97 Trask Road, townsperson on the committee, and have extensive construction experience, having retired from Otis Elevator Company after 35 years, working in that industry now as a consultant. My father-in-law is Harold Tipsky, former chief of the Hill, so I have some knowledge of fire departments of the past. I look forward to serving on the committee.
Tom Snyder, Wellington Hill Fire Department Chief. I've been in the department since 1991. I've been chief for 14 years now.
Ray Rothhauser, I'm here representing the Board of Finance. I grew up in Vernon, but don't hold that against me. I'm here basically as a townsperson more than anything else. I did work for Simon's Construction before concrete forming, but not doing anything much other than requests for proposals and stuff like that.
Brenda Kelleher, lifelong townsperson also. Almost 20 years of construction experience at this point. Which doesn't make me feel old, but I was admittedly a member of Wellington Hill for about 35 seconds. Less than a year, probably about 14 years ago, I think, right before you became chief as an EMT, and just very minimal brief involvement. Just my life went into a different path, but I do have nursing, healthcare experience also from like a emergency services and healthcare background, kind of tie that together too, so.
You're a licensed, right, are you?
Yeah, I'm a nurse.
Yeah, an RN?
Yeah.
RN.
That's where we're going here.
We'll go around this way.
We're not on the committee, so I don't know if you want us to say anything or.
Sure.
Alternates.
Charlie Gantic, born and raised in Wellington, member of Wellington Fire Department #1, I'm also the town fire marshal.
Oh, okay, didn't know
Alex Moore, the fire chief for Wellington #1. I've been fire chief since 2015. Since, before that, I've been a member employee, been here since 2006.
Dave Jankowski, been in town about 45 years.
Luke,
Basement contractor. Matter of fact, I've worked on all the firehouses,
okay,
did a little bit of brick on every,
nice.
or block.
I'm just taking notes.
Stuart Cobb, been in town only about 40 years, but my family moved here in 1906, I'm still in the same house, so got some roots here. I work full-time for the fire department, have had since 93, I think, but I joined in 88.
Oh,
Ron Gantic, 238 Village Hill Road, been in town for 48 years, been in the department for 47, past chief, been president for the last 15 years. I spent 20 years working in property management and property maintenance.
Tyler Phillips, I was born and raised in Wellington. I moved out of Wellington about 10 years ago. On Woodstock, I still own my house in Wellington. I was a fire chief at Wellington for about 20 years, and 36 years I've been in various positions in town on the board of selectmen, planning and zoning, and numerous other committees over the years. And I currently am the executive director of the Regional 901 Center that serves 4 or 5 different counties in the state.
Ralph Tillis.
Old.
What have you done?
I was born in 72.
There we go. Lived here all my life, for the most part. I was briefly a member of the Hill Department, and my folks still had the store on 74. Of course, it was 44 then. I've gotten a few rides to St. Francis, courtesy of Wellington One. Thank you guys very much, appreciate that. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I've served 15 years on planning and zoning, school building committee. And I follow local affairs pretty close. I tend to speak out when it is appropriate, hopefully.
Mike, you're last. You missed all the other ones, but we're just introducing ourselves and who we are.
Mike McCoo, lived in Wellington my whole life, except for a couple of years when I went out and ventured maybe 12 miles away, so I could say I was worldly. Been a member, I started my fire service in Wellington as a explorer in Wellington One in 1981 or 82. And then have spent since 1983 in Wellington Hill Fire Department, including president and chief. And retired career deputy chief. I'm a fire marshal and a certified building official. And have been on the board of selectmen, board of finance, some other committees in town.
Okay, cool. So now that's who we are. And we have a charge from the first selectman to do something to. Yeah, sure.
We have a present to speak in our agenda before we get into our own agenda, just to get off on a good start. People in the room and people online.
Well, we don't even have officers yet. We're not really a committee then. So I think we need to wait a bit. And then once we do that, then we can have members vote on a change to the agenda, but to
Gotcha.
follow Robert's Rules of Orders, you're probably in the procedure to as closely as possible.
I
The expert at
your
it.
judgment.
Well, that's your first mistake. Anyway, there is a charge for the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee. And this is us. It went through some iterations about the people. So I'm going to skip that part. It's up on the board there. But the first part talks about the makeup of it. That was amended as time went on. But the charge itself, and let me read that before we get into officer elections, so we can call ourselves an official committee and move forward. Identify emergent fire department facility issues, develop and initiate a plan with consideration for immediate and long-term needs and financial responsibility. Engage both fire departments, fire marshals, selectmen, emergency management, police, and any similar agencies to understand current and future programmatic needs that might drive facility needs. Review previous studies for information related to service needs that affect facility needs. Review previous studies for information related to conditions and effectiveness of current facilities. Determine and recommend engagement of consultants or similar professionals to assist in the following. Collect and evaluate data on historical emergency service / public safety needs based on type, severity, and location. Pursue any available forecasts of future emergency services / public safety trends or demands based on type, severity, and location. Ascertain any opportunities to meet programmatic needs of the town without unneeded duplication of resources, programs, etc. Determine best locations of resources to address those needs as effectively as possible using currently available town and department properties or alternate locations with a or plural known as a station location study. recommend use of currently available funds to further design efforts for both short and long-term projects. So A, continuation of Wellington Fire Department 1 design work for Station 13 at 426 River Road. Continuing of Wellington Hill Fire Department design work for 25 Old Farms Road. Develop and recommend an emergency services facilities plan, ESPP parentheses, or a building plan of major capital items for all related services, including pricing estimates. Seek information on and support pursuit of funding, including but not limited to donations, grants, state and federal funds and local funds. Seek design contracts for any portions of the emergency service facilities plan that are approved. Seek construction contracts for any portions of the ESFP that are approved. Communicate progress of committee work through public meetings, outreach forums, etc., as appropriate. Provide assistance to and oversight of work in the town's name up to delivery of completed projects. Provide final report once committee's work is done and no further progress is expected. That's quite a big charge. It covers everything from concept, design, monitoring contracts, and the final completion of a project if whatever moves forward. So in order to do that, we have to have a strong committee and we have to report out well. I have noticed with any of these committees that would be, what I've observed is the, communicating to the public effectively. And it's very important because ultimately you need public support. So, any project of significant size needs to go to a budget and a lot of people involved. There's an awful lot of conversation to take place. So I think the more effectively we communicate, the better off we'll be right from the start. So that starts with election of officers. So we need to have a chairman and we need to have a vice chairman. The first selectman has informed me that there are funds available for say a recording secretary and maybe other expenditures. So that would imply we need a treasurer. Because if we're in charge of money, somebody needs to be at least monitoring that. I don't know that we need a secretary, but probably there's no real rules about how to set up a committee that I could find. I don't know what a secretary would do, so I don't feel free to speak up. This is a conversation. This is not gratitude. This is just a conversation, and I'm not the chairman, so I'm just a guy
You're
sitting
the
here.
facilitator for
I'm a
them.
facilitator for this first meeting, and that's all I am.
You are, by default, you're the chairman right now.
I'm sitting in a chair and I do identify as a man, so I need those.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I don't know that we have a need for a secretary either,
I don't know what function.
as long as we have the recording secretary as the critical piece.
Right, I was thinking we could call somebody a secretary treasurer, that might make people optically happy if they see that as a dual role, so. Any thoughts on
the Board of Finance, the secretary is like third in line. That's the only.
Well, and I think it has there are some requirements like in the Connecticut general statutes for that also.
Yeah, right, yeah. Same
Like
with
that
planning
has
and
some sort of
zoning.
statutory
There's some
reason
stuff,
that
right.
exists. Not sure we need it here.
Commissions have a different structure than a committee, so.
Wouldn't it be good at this point to look, make up ownership and recognize who's voting member and who's an advisory member?
Sure.
I think that would, because that was specific in the appointments, if I believe.
And I don't actually know. I don't know what that is, or I don't know who's voting, who's advising.
Do we have a list of people?
Yeah, we do have a list.
I have a list, but I don't know who was appointed as voting and none.
I don't know either. The original charge called for, we added some people. We originally,
Yeah,
I have some of them.
Originally, it was 8 members of the, 8 members made up of,
yeah,
do
you want me to go over that, Angie?
would you mind?
No, I wouldn't mind at all.
I would appreciate it.
It's
The
you from the Board of Selectmen,
first election is not over.
Rick from the Board of Finance, Pete,
Right there.
Take, I'm never gonna get your name right as long as I live
No problem.
Pete Letincius and Ralph. And then, Brenna and Dave, right?
Yeah.
Those were the four, the 6 from the community, as it were. And then from the fire department's voting members, it was Ron and Tyler from 1 and Stuart as the, alternate. And from the Hill, it was Mike and Tom and James as the alternate. And I believe that completes the list.
Yeah. Could you,
I thought about this way too much.
So.
What do we got
myself-
for?
Myself.
James,
is-
okay.
Yep, I'm an alternate.
Okay, but you're voting as an alternate, Stuart's a voter.
No, the
No,
alternates.
so we seat place,
Oh, but they're not voting, so Stuart,
They have to be seated.
right, we have to be seated.
okay. Wait, I thought Stuart was gonna be the voter and, Tyler was gonna be the alternate, because Tyler doesn't actually live. That was a big thing when the first
Oh, yeah,
came in,
yeah,
they
yeah.
said, you gotta live in town. You gotta,
Well,
no,
the decision was made,
I'm happy to leave.
no. You're staying. But then somebody said, well, Stuart can be the voter and Tyler can be the
No,
alternate.
Stuart, no, back, they still put Tyler as the regular member
Alright.
and Stuart as the alternate.
All right,
I believe it was based on, property ownership.
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
Well, that, right, but people were saying you had to live here. That was just, that was one of the.
that
people got-
was discussed.
They were
It
getting
is-
kind of jacked up.
It is correct that you ended up deciding to
Right,
select
that's fine.
Tyler.
So my notes from the meeting have Tom Snyder from Willington Hill.
Yeah.
Jim, right? Jim
James,
Knight
Yep,
as the alternate for Willington Hill. Tyler Millix for 1,
okay,
Alex Moore as the alternate, but that was voted.
right, because he didn't live.
And
right, you know,
Stewart was put in as the alternate. Bree was a member at large. Dan was also a member at large.
And
Oh, Dave, sorry. Dave and, Brenna.
okay,
Yeah, so those were the last villains.
And Brent
right,
And,
Okay.
and Ron.
and Ron, yeah, well, that was, you were done in the other meeting. You were done in the first
Oh,
meeting.
right.
This is from the second meeting.
voter.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah, you're a voter, right?
yeah,
Yes,
okay, so everybody on this list is a voter. Should I be a voter?
Yes.
you are a voter.
But should I be a
You have
voter?
no choice,
Yes.
it's already done.
You are representing the Board of Selectmen.
But then I'm also gonna see it as, isn't that sort of a conflict?
You're gonna what?
Well, if I'm gonna be voting on it again as a selectman or whatever the committee, is that a problem? Is that a
Mm-mm.
problem?
No.
Is that a problem?
No.
No, Board of Finance representatives are on committees and then they go back to their board.
Okay. Just, it occurred to me that would it be a problem
You're
later
a
on?
power user.
How are you?
That's me. All right. So now we know
Official
who the
title.
voters are. Okay, is that?
Yep.
That was your question now.
We got 10 voting members, is that?
That was what
That was
yeah.
what the idea was. Okay.
So,
Make it even. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, it could be in a deadline.
actually, this is a good thing.
Well, the chairman traditionally wouldn't, or the deal, the chairman wouldn't vote until it was needed, if I was needed, so you got in mind.
There's that way of looking at it, but the other way that I would look at it is if it's a tie, the motion goes down, which is gonna force us to reach
So a consensus, that's
a
fair enough.
consensus that does pass. So in a way, it's a good.
Man. So, all right, so fine, we need to, elect some officers so we know who's, doing what to whom.
I would nominate Mr. Marco as our chairperson. Since he's got,
Ooh, that was a quick second.
All right, I do accept that.
well, we should vote on it to be.
Well, I know, but what if I declined it?
Then we'd have to find
All
someone.
right, so I accepted it.
So probably keep the nomination open.
Who seconded? Okay.
Oh, well, Andy.
Andy is.
Sorry.
Chairman.
Lack of hearing.
One down.
Any other nomin?
Oh, for chair,
Just one.
you're it.
Makes sense.
All right. Well, I guess as facilitator.
All in favor? Was that an all in
Randy
favor?
Marco is Chairman of the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee, voice vote, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Thanks for your vote of confidence. Okay, who's vice chairman? In case I can't make it or incapacitated in some way.
I would nominate Ralph Toulis.
I'll second that.
Who seconded?
Me again.
All right, any other nominees? Hearing none, all in favor of Ralph Toulis being the vice chairman? Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? None. Great. And now we need I guess, the last one would be the secretary treasurer, just because there is some funding available, so somebody's gotta be able to speak to that. It could be a dual role. Are there any nominations, anybody that, I don't think it's gonna be an onerous thing, just really, when we ask somebody to write a check, so it's gotta be recorded somewhere.
Is anybody interested?
Is anybody interested? Is anybody even remotely interested in, not really?
I can do it as a Board of Finance member, I guess, maybe.
There you go.
That's fine.
Okay. All right,
I move that, we nominate Brett
yep,
as the
okay.
secretary
I'll
treasurer.
second that,
All right.
before she changes.
The other, only someone wasn't here, then we could have nominated.
Yeah, right.
Hearing no other nominations, by a voice vote, all in favor of Brett Rothhauser being the secretary treasurer, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, so we have our officers. Okay, good. All right, so I already jumped the gun. I read the mission statement first, just because I felt it was more appropriate. I want to quickly get into meeting structure. This is a committee. I think this room causes some problems because it's sort of, should be more like a round table because we're all equal here, so everybody has an equal voice. So it's not the best room to encourage that, but, we have a bunch of different opportunities, but the meeting structure will be kind of like this: call a meeting to order. We're gonna have, agenda items put in. I encourage people to, send it to my Marco at, wilmingtoncT.gov. So we can get the agenda built up. So we know who the voting members are, priorities, public input, doesn't speak, great idea. We'll definitely have that on the agenda going forward.
Just, I think a lot of committees I have been on and boards in town have been wrestling with this issue.
Yeah,
And I think we've learned in some of them that having a very strict system of public speaking and the board doesn't engage, and then the board does their business is not the most effective in getting input or getting the people in the public to buy into the committee's work. So I think we should at least consider sort of being clear about what our framework is, and that maybe the present to speak at the beginning of the meeting is clearly shown on the agenda as a Q&A.
yeah.
So there could be some back and forth. And then there would be an opportunity for people potentially to raise their hand during a meeting, and if the chair chooses to solicit conversation with the people in the room during the meeting, I think that could be effective. If it ends up that the meetings get out of control and they're going 4 hours, we may have to change that.
Right,
Because that's not gonna work for any of us.
all right. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, I think the more buy-in you get from the public, the better. I mean, we're not trying to shove anything down. I mean.
Right, you just have to figure out how to balance with maintaining
Yeah.
the agenda and getting the job done and getting people who are volunteering to be in here, out of here at some point.
Right. One thing that, you can do is, I think in our, planning and zoning finally put together like a, what do we call it, not a charter, but I forgot the name for it, and we said meetings don't go beyond 10 o'clock. We just simply put so I know, whatever, but we could do the same thing, that if 6:30 is a comfortable time, and we come up with a date that works for everyone, we just, I mean, let's say meetings won't go beyond what? 2 hours, 8:30? So, all right, so we'll put into the minutes then that we've agreed that meetings will not, they'll end at 8:30. So if we have a lot of Q and A and it's good, then we just move the things we didn't cover out of the next agenda. Because it's, what doesn't really matter, right? Once we establish the priorities, they should go in sort of a linear order. Of course, there's a lot of cross pollinating. All right, so we'll agree that, we will have public to speak and, we'll have a formal present to speak in the agenda at the beginning, and then we'll be open to Q and A. I don't know to say where appropriate is, right? We'll just say we're open to Q
At
and
the
A.
discretion of the chair.
At the discretion of.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That sounds
does
good.
that work for everybody?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so, present speak and Q and A. Okay.
The only misgiving I have so far is a hard stop at 8:30. If we're having an especially productive night, I think we should take advantage of that.
Okay, but if we publish meetings will end at 8:30, then we'll say the committee can extend where needed. Is that
Sure.
fair?
That's,
Yep.
that's.
So like, we take a vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, not everybody can always
8:40
stay.
gets us to an answer, then we shouldn't stop
Right.
at 8:30.
Exactly, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't, 8:30 unless committee votes to extend. There you go.
Andy, a lot of boards in town have a second president to speak at the end, which I think townspeople find useful, because they come to the meeting, they listen to everything, and then they feel compelled to want to say something.
Put it at the end, yeah.
It might be useful unless there's Q and A throughout the meeting, negates that, it's possible.
I think it negates itself, Peter. I think when everybody's had a chance to speak and everybody spoke, so nobody feels, but you're right. I think having it on the agenda, not everyone is comfortable speaking in public, so okay, we want to give people the most opportunity.
And a lot of times topics come up over the course of a meeting, so that present to speak at the end of the
Right.
meeting can be helpful.
Sure.
Because people didn't speak out because they didn't know what was being covered then.
All right, so we
Just
agree.
in the agenda.
All right, yeah, so we agree, present speak in the beginning, Q and A during, a soft stop at 8:30 unless we decide to continue, and we'll have present to speak at the end.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so that kind of covers meeting structure, covers the first one, it covers. I wrote that in there just because it was something that when I was researching about committees, about timelines and deliverables, I don't know. What I was imagining is that should we report out monthly? Do we want to, I think that the first selectman deserves a report on progress
I believe at the selectmen's meeting, we asked for a report monthly.
monthly.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that works for everybody? We'll put together it'll be in the minutes, but it's something, I guess as chair, I would put together sort of a summary,
Yeah.
kind of where we're at. Is that comfortable? Does anybody mind that I do that? Okay, so monthly, we'll do monthly reports out to, the first selectman. And those can be published on the town website too,
The minutes?
the summary.
Well,
Well, the minutes would be, but
The summary would be part of the selectmen's minutes,
okay, so I could read those.
and
into
your
the-
minutes would be on the town website.
Okay, so we'll do the meeting minutes on the town website, but the summary could be read into the selectmen meeting minutes,
Right.
that's be comfortable, okay?
Yeah, what we did or didn't do.
Yeah, whatever happened, yeah, it's progress, whatever that is, okay. So we agreed that we'll do monthly, the minutes will be, these are recorded and video and all that happy stuff, and they'll be on the town website. And the chair will do a monthly summary, or the vice chair, so the chairman's busy. Chairman will do we'll read the summary into the BOS minutes at the appropriate meeting time, whatever that is, whatever that's scheduled for. Okay, best day and time to meet, best location. The Owl's kind of nice. I used to like meeting at the library, but I'm not having much luck. I have no traction getting an answer from the library. I don't know. I haven't tried bribes yet, but that might happen.
So
This is a good, I don't like this room so much because of the way that it's set up, but I like the owl.
I don't know, most of you got it, but I offered up 25 Old Farms Road.
Right, I know Ralph asked about this kind of,
Yeah, the setup, I mean, we have internet there, so I don't know what it would entail to get a monitor and the owl. I mean, I don't know if that could be done relatively easily.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
If you meet upstairs, I moved the owl up there so that you could meet in more of a circle.
yeah,
The other thing is that I wanna get something where we can take, town meetings on the road with recordings. We just don't have the technology buy for that yet, and I'm gonna talk to somebody, see if we can get a cart that you can just roll around and set up a meeting anywhere.
They do have portable owls.
Yeah.
so this building has this technological advantage, which, I mean, even in the event that, say, we did a recording secretary wasn't here, the meeting's still recorded, so
Yeah.
we're fully in compliance. That's a big plus, otherwise somebody's scratching out notes. Now, an agenda doesn't, I mean, the meeting minutes, they're called minutes, but it isn't like, you don't have to do what every single person said, you can simply kind of highlight it and make decisions and whatever, so, I mean, they don't have to be overly complex, but this building's nice. I think the only problem I have with any building that's, owned by one of the departments is it sort of gives sort of an appearance of a home court advantage. And I think that, you know, and I don't know, I'm just reading, you know, you read the notes about how the public reacts to other committees. And since they're going to be the ones that ultimately decide whatever decisions are made through some sort of a referendum or vote, that appearance has value, whether or not we like it or not, it has an impact and something to consider. But I think the technological stuff outweighs almost all the other places. I don't know what the library has.
the optics is what you were referring
It
to.
is, yeah, I don't like that word.
And it's unfortunate, but it's reality, people's perceptions.
How about rotating them between least or field trips, if you wanna call it, that have a meeting in Wellington Hill, have one at 13, 2:13.
I think that's a fine idea.
That would give some opportunity for some people that are on the committee that perhaps haven't.
That's,
In the station,
The South Station.
yeah, in the north.
Yeah.
Tables and chairs,
it's summertime, sorry.
yeah.
We won't.
Forget it.
We held a board of selectmen meeting at the main station.
That's right.
We did do a board of selectmen and board of
Yeah,
finance
yeah.
meeting at the main station.
That's-
Well, but we did one there.
Open the doors. All right, so, while we work this out, and then that building becomes an option too, so, all right, so. I think I saw, you know, heads nodding and I didn't see any eye rolls, so, if we work closely to I guess this would be ideally, it should be on the same day, same time, same place, so everybody can schedule that. Is that possible? I don't know. Let me explore with our super talented, Peter's super talented administrative assistant.
I didn't even have to pay for that one.
And it only cost me a quesadilla, so it's all right.
Listen, I'm an easy buy, I can't help it.
And we'll try to work it out. Is there any particular day that stands out as ideal for everyone in this room? I don't have one.
The first Thursday, I think.
Yeah.
It's hard.
No, Thursdays were tough for you, Brad?
Wednesdays are tough for me, but, I mean, Wednesdays are lovely,
Yeah, Wednesdays.
but
love-
I'm one of 10,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But Thursdays, other than Brenda, seem okay?
As long as we don't conflict with board of finance.
Wednesday's
Board of
tough for
Selectmen
this
are-
building.
Yeah.
The board of selectmen are Mondays. Yes, and but I mean, there's always gonna be special meetings, but there are two rooms.
It's not like it's every Thursday, so we can,
Will you not make it at all on the first Thursday ever?
it's just like my, only the thing that conflicts with like my nursing days, but I don't get home until like 9, so, I can just, but I do have some schedule flexibility, so as long as I know the dates going forward, if it's like, oh, it's the first Thursday, I can just fill that in. So it's not like a food problem.
That is one of the rules for any town committee is, once we're done, is I do have to project the schedule.
Yeah. As long as it's not gonna like always
I
change
don't know if it's-
which Thursday it is,
Right,
then,
and we do have Zoom capabilities and
yeah,
you're gonna see the minutes and you won't be misinformed, you just won't
yeah,
have your voice won't be heard for that night,
it's,
so.
it's doable.
All right, so Thursdays are a good day, so we'll target Thursdays, I will work with,
The first.
Crystal.
You can
First
work
Thursday?
once or twice a month.
Well, that's a very good question. I would, ideally, I would like to meet twice a month for say, the first couple of months, because there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of stuff to get hammered out as for priorities and there's a lot of stuff going on. And I think after that, once you get some momentum, then things kind of take longer. If you're, you know,
Right.
if you're looking at
I
contracts,
was saying, I was on the library building.
yeah,
So yeah, then there's, you know, you're gonna get the initial, when you get things rolling, then there's gonna be a lull.
right,
And then if you start construction, then it's gonna be every week.
yeah, right, that's right.
And that's what we did.
Okay, so does that sound fair to everybody that say we could meet every
First and third.
Thursday, not every Thursday, 2 Thursdays a month, first and third, for until, I don't know, maybe June or something, it's summertime. I don't know.
The third Thursday is Board of Finance.
Okay,
Yeah, okay, I would say the second and fourth would be better.
Yeah.
That would,
second and fourth, okay,
Yes,
so,
would avoid any.
Maybe on the calendar, for the anybody use on the second, fourth Thursday?
No,
Um,
Thursday's a good night here, because there's not a lot of meetings on Thursday.
I'm not seeing anything on my calendar.
No, there's nothing.
The other one. All right, there's nothing.
Wednesday's a terrible night here. Wednesday's bad
all
here.
right, so the second and third Thursdays of the month.
Second, fourth.
Second and fourth Thursdays. That's what I wrote down, I just didn't say it. At 6:30 PM till 8:30 PM, that's will be the, unless otherwise extended. Words to that effect. All
I
right,
like to schedule special meetings as needed.
absolutely. And then we'll decide when we want to stop doing that, when the pain gets too great, then we'll make a decision. All right. Keeping the public informed, I think we already covered that.
If I could just suggest, when you submit the list to the town clerk for posting,
Yes,
I would just make sure you have the unless things on that list, so that you've expressed to the public,
Mhm.
like the location will be here unless announced different.
right.
That
Okay.
way you are informing the public from the beginning that there are gonna be some alterations.
Yeah, you want your default location and then
Right.
opportunity to.
Right, I could do that as like a little star or something, or I'll work with Robin on that. She's done this before, and she'll guide me in the right direction, I feel. Okay, yeah, so keeping the public informed, I think we covered that. We'll post the minutes at an appropriate time after the meeting, and then we'll do the summary and the recording secretary. That's, I mean, Mr. Tanaka's a slave driver. You can't do it all.
Yes, he's tough,
I don't know.
but, I mean, I can make it work.
Okay. If that's all right with everyone, that's great. Okay, old business, we didn't really have any conclusions and next steps. Okay, there's a lot of ideas on the table, so bear with me while I go through a little exercise that kind of helps me think. Where's the best place to do this? Most people are facing now.
While you're doing that, can I bring up these old studies?
Yeah, you can talk about that, but just bear with me here.
Oh, okay. All right, well, go ahead and do your thing.
Do my little pony show here. Okay, these are things that other people have mentioned. And these are not in any order, all right, but we have things to think about, town contracts with each fire department. We need to think about ownership of existing fire facilities, past studies and consultant reports, mutual aid, support from other facilities and infrastructures. Oh, wrong color. Distance from existing stations to the various parts of town. Mutual aid, intensity, frequency and impact, meaning how often does Wellington respond to other mutual aid? Available funding, what's available right now? Roles of each department. Current emergency services, like, some are more EMT, some, I don't know that, I mean, I'm just from what I'm leaning. Plans for existing buildings. Current equipment inventory. Location study, these are all from different people, so some you'll see the trend, that's why I wrote them down. 426 River Road issues. Field trips to, the stations, which I think Stuart's idea of having meetings there kind of covers that one. That's a good one. And that was it. Now, these were from emails that I got from various people. So some of those are grouped together. So we see, where was the location study and the past studies, and so that's two people that agree on that. Anything, so are there any priorities? I mean, is there a quick way to prioritize that stuff? You were talking about, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. Pete, as a person, and you too, Andy, I guess, was the Board of Selectmen's intent in the development of the committee to venture outside the scope of strictly a building, looking at buildings? Because the first, I'm not saying I'm opposed or against it. The first 3 or 4 things have happened to do with internal operations of the fire department, how they operate. Is that, you want that in the scope as well?
I want that insofar as it affects what your facilities need to be.
Okay.
So if you need to park an ambulance.
Yep.
You need an ambulance parking bay. So if your internal operations is ambulances, you have to take that into account.
What about like mutual aid questions and things like that?
Mutual aid questions may have something to do with where your heat studies are,
Okay.
et cetera. But I want the focus here to, number one, be on what needs to be done right now.
Yeah.
I like people to be inside and fire engines not to freeze in the winter. That's, you know, you got it. So prioritizing those things. Some of this other stuff, it's of interest to the community.
Correct.
And that may be part of your selling.
Okay.
Your communication on why you need this. I don't want to. I think that there needs to be an understanding of that to the community. I've been hearing a lot from people that have. We've been meeting once a month for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And we've been covering a lot of this under the efficiency.
Right.
People are still coming up to me, why don't these two guys ever, once a month, they get together and they talk, what are you talking about? Well, I didn't see that, you know, so.
And
I think that's part of this.
just those notes that are up there, all absolutely wonderful topics and things to talk about. You just gotta be.
You gotta
The chairman's gotta, we prioritize it,
right.
and don't get mired down for months and months on, well, you gotta keep going.
I understand that.
Those are complex topics.
I think the charge, kind of from trying to remember all the bullet points in the charge, I think that speaks to, because you're right, Tyler, that we shouldn't venture over into what's not in the charge, which is deciding or guiding the departments in their operational needs. But what the charge does seem to be tapping into is, what are the operational needs and the functionalities and how they affect the facilities?
Yeah.
Because that's what you need to understand the functions to know what you need for facilities.
That charge was really even more broad than those points
Yeah.
there.
Yes,
It was
yeah.
extensive.
I did notice in the chart, there's a catch-all in there. After taking the opportunity to be programmatic needs of the town without any duplication, resources, and programs, et cetera. I looked at that, you know, after I raised an eyebrow, I looked at it, that's where you can really get into some of the public questions or concerns that were expressed to you, you can cover those under that.
Well, and I think that originally came from a comment from someone that said, would you need, 2 banquet rooms at one at each end of town? Someone asked that question, and I think Chief Moore, you even spoke about the fact that we're not looking, even in the plans that were currently underway that are now up for debate, we weren't looking to duplicate things like that. I think that's some.
Too far?
There is some, I mean, it's,
Can you build one? I mean.
I think if I take a smaller frame of this, if I'm doing something at home, the first thing I need to do is, do I really need it? And then can I afford it? And then how's it gonna look? And and that's kind of where we're going. One of the,
Wants and needs.
yeah, wants and needs, and one thing too, that's this. The public perception shouldn't be that it's already been decided that a brand new firehouse is definitely necessary and you don't have any choice in that. So that's what we're looking at. We have facilities in town that are they meeting the needs? Yes. No one's dying and lives are being saved and emergency services are being provided. Is it the best facilities? Absolutely not. So that's what this committee is supposed to do. So in order to do that, you gotta build out some of the background, like where are we at? What do we have? And I don't know what the inventory, I have no idea. And I would say most people probably don't either. So, this is just a list of what's been brought up, and it's kind of things that will, if you look at the chart, these things kind of speak to it in some way. And I think that, where do we need to start? And I don't know the answer to that. Mike, go ahead.
I have my own feelings on this, and some of this has been a lot of conversation with Chief Moore and other people in town. And in a lot of meetings already, so none of it is secret. I think that we have dueling priorities. One is proper planning, which is a lot of this conversation here. What do we do? What do we need? How do we do it? What do we need to, what facilities do we need to accomplish that? And then the other dueling need is we have real serious time pressure, particularly for the 426 River Road Station. And so how can we have dual tracks of trying to find a solution for that while we're also doing proper planning to justify what we're asking the taxpayers for? And in my mind, I've been advocating for the fact that we need to get to the station location study, because that doesn't stop anything else from happening, and that can happen once we hire someone, that can be done typically in 3 months.
Okay.
So that needs, in my mind, that needs to get on the tracks. And at the same time, we can be having the conversation about how do we get people undercover by next winter in that 426 River Road, even if it's the solution that's temporary until the bigger solution is put into place.
All right, so that's why I focus on why we move things around all I want. Okay, so now we got location study and past studies and consultant reports. We have plans for existing buildings, which kind of falls under that. Available funding. And,
So one of the things that, are we have like an ebb and flow here, or are we doing? Can we speak freely, or you just let people start just talk about the right thing?
I don't know how, I'm not gonna say the chair recognizes so-and-so. I don't know if we have to do that.
I don't know, Mike, exactly what, hiring a consultant to tell us where a firehouse should be is the most effective use of tax dollars, when we have at our disposal numerous areas of data that we can look at very, very easily. And I think the group could probably discern from that data where, a suitable firehouse should be.
Well, so that's a fair point, except if you go back to the conversation we had a minute ago about people having a perception, if you have a meeting in a certain person's firehouse, that puts some bias on the thing. Imagine the potential bias of people who are going to collect and interpret data about where the fire station should be, having their hands in that process. $30,000 is a lot of money, it's important, it's taxpayer money, but $30,000 is probably well spent when we're asking the taxpayers to potentially spend millions of dollars building fire stations. And when you have an outside interest do it, you have an opportunity to bank on their integrity. And you can say it's a third party, and that report is less likely impugned by one group or another group or whatever.
So my rebuttal to that would be much more from a historical perspective, is the taxpayers have paid over $150,000 for 3 studies over the last 20 years, and no one's followed one of them.
Right.
So why don't you do it again?
Because this is a very different kind of a study, and we're in this planning process that we have to justify to the taxpayers. And the first thing that comes up, the data comes from the place that you operate, that you run. A lot of the data comes from that place.
Or from your own data, from your own, it's in your, it's the same data you have in your firehouses.
Right, so and I'm not making accusations, I'm just saying, you start putting people in this group who have vested interests into key roles in that data and in that analysis, it brings the opportunity for people to question the quality of the data or which set of data you chose.
When was the most recent, you mentioned like 3 historical, when was the most recent one?
The facility study, which, Ralph, you.
Does Ralph have that on his notes?
Castle,
Study?
2003.
So, 20 years ago. but-
And it wasn't on this topic, it
It
wasn't a
wasn't,
station
it
location
wasn't
study.
specific with station location.
So none of the reports, prior studies spoke to location.
No, it spoke to the existing conditions of the firehouses and provided programmatic, overview of what would be needed.
All right, well,
Consider it 2003,
though, I was here. That
Yeah.
was before. Christina was the first one. Yeah.
That was a facility study.
Facility study, that's right.
Which included the senior center.
So helpful, but like a piece of it and not all of the data, like a piece of the.
Yeah, I mean, all the stickies that are up there is totality, it's all been covered before.
The last one was probably just prior to me being chief, so early nineties.
I mean, Hartley study.
The Harley Field study did do pin maps at the time, instead of computerized.
Okay, so we do have some data.
That, you have a lot of data here, just like, to my
No, that's
point,
fine, no, all right. We
there's a
have-
lot of very factual data that's out there. The problem is that you have folks in their careers that work at certain places. You wanna get all your data from Wellington one? No. You wanna get all from Wellington? Hell, no. I happen to run the dispatch center that houses all of the master data.
Right, no, but that's,
Not that I can ever manipulate or even know how to look at it.
Yeah.
But, I have people, that's what they do.
but we've had past studies. I think it's worth, you wanted to speak to those anyway, Ralph, so.
Well, I have all of those three studies
Yeah.
on thumb drives. So
But-
anyone who wants.
But it does sound like the prior study would work on this line here. The prior study could speak to
My concern is.
what to do with the existing buildings. Am I hearing right? The prior studies could speak to what I mean, we have a need of the current buildings that need to be looked at. Regardless of where we go forward with
Yes.
a location study. So if this now, these are sort of in concert, but would these prior studies help us work on this line here? What to do with 426 River Road, ideally before the end of the year, before winter, maybe, I'm thinking.
Because there's recommendations in those studies. Now, they're older, but there are.
I mean, would it, if we pay for studies and then we don't use them at all, that seems sort of wrong.
Well, we have worked, I mean, we have done work off of those studies. Wellington Hill did additions on their firehouse based on some of that work. And that the work that you guys did to get plans drawn up, which is sort of in limbo right now, was done based off of some of those recommendations.
If I could jump in here, Andy, I agree that there's a pressing priority here with Station 113.
Right, 13.
I feel that should almost be separated from everything else, so that we address what the first selectman expressed, that winter is coming eventually, and
Can it be separated? Is it, I mean, aren't they
Well,
almost concurrent or not?
no, I'm saying separated in terms of addressing the immediate situation there so that the building can be used.
That's what I was saying, that's why I was saying two paths.
And ultimately, we're gonna move in a collective decision on both departments and their facilities, but I, for one, not knowing anything about either fire department, contrary to what Tyler's saying, I really need to immerse myself in what do they do? I wanna see the contracts with each fire corporation, what their purpose is, how does that match the facilities they have? So does this sound great to me? I want to understand the equipment list, as someone said, who owns what properties? All right. I don't want to have short shrift for that. I want to study your organization completely. Sure. Before I even think about a building for either corporation.
And all that comes on the data collection.
Okay.
So I want 113 resolved and fast.
All right,
13, just, station 13.
Yeah, station
13.
thank you. All right, so now the priority then is 426 River Road, Station 13. Plan for existing buildings, available funding, and we'll just get rid of that one. Good Lord. Does that work so far? I mean, can that be, we're not gonna stay here forever, but. So if we start with this. What do we need to, and this is, the location study, that's right underneath. I don't think those are entirely separate. Because as we look at what's gonna happen to, Station 13, I don't see that, like, the hill's completely isolated from that because there's probably things going on there too. In order to support Station 13, I'm sure the town.
I think the first thing you probably need is to get up, and the group get up to speed on exactly what has been done so far and where, all the way up to present day, whether it's planning, architectural drawing, all that stuff. Well, what has been done? What do we pay for already?
So how do we find that out?
Currently have.
Yeah, what do you currently have in hand?
I got nothing. So where do we find that out?
You want it?
People in this room can answer that.
Yes, it's in our building.
This building.
Yeah.
So. Ron Stewart, Tyler, one of you.
Ralph, why don't you, tell us what you have? Because I know you've done a lot of research and that's what you
But
do.
thumb drive for everyone who wants one. That has the 3 previous studies. It has a PowerPoint presentation on how to organize and set up a fire department. Wow, it's a rather large file, which is why they're all on thumb drives, because I can't email them to anybody, because they're too big.
From a construction perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said set up a fire department. And it's not, I mean, the building, not focus, a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You're right.
Need more thumb drives.
But what I see, just from where I sit and where I live, Station 13 needs to be addressed tomorrow.
All right, so that's,
Period.
Get the town backhoe over there.
We have a building that should be able to be used as a garage. What we don't have is how do we accommodate the personnel that need to be there? That's where we should be focused right now, as far as Station 13 is concerned. I mean, the camper's okay, I suppose, but I don't know that it will be, how many years will it be before we could actually break ground on a new building on that location? It's not gonna be next year.
I agree. I think there needs to be a temporary solution that is minimalistic, but good enough to be safe and get people undercover and
Warm.
have next winter safer and have the crew together
Yes.
and allowing time for this planning exercise to be happening.
Correct. That's my sentiment. I feel very strongly that that needs to be resolved. We're not gonna build a very classy fire station down there next month. It's just not gonna happen. But a temporary building, a temporary, construction trailer, and I hesitate to call them that because they come pretty
They're pretty nice
equipped
now.
these days. Would be perfect quarters for the crew.
But we looked into that, and it's quite costly.
Yeah, they're very expensive.
It's very,
And we did look at a construction trailer, you can't actually live or call you can't house somebody in a construction trailer because of the way they're designed.
Okay, well,
It has to be a mobile home. So do you have are there any estimates out there, actual estimates that to basically do what you gotta do in there to get back in? Into the building? Yeah, well, I'm not talking all the accoutrements, I'm just saying to legally get in there.
Isn't that part of the issue? Sorry, isn't that
So
part of the
that's-
like,
So that's a varying degree of perception. The building official said we have to replace the siding and the insulation, and we have to bring the building. So that's not, I guess that's my point, that's another consideration, Andy, is the regulatory issues that are there. Can the existing building be? Can I have it, does anybody mind if I give a quick update as to where we are in the building? Maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
That'd be lovely.
What the problem is, and it won't cost.
I haven't.
Yes.
I just wanna stop for a second. I think we're agreeing the priority now is Station 13. Okay, 220.
It was definitely,
426.
it was definitely a priority.
Okay, so this is a priority, but this is what we're gonna be talking about now. It's what we're focused on, which is fine. We don't wanna forget about all this stuff. And anybody that
No.
wants to weigh in, if you see something that you say, hey, I can contribute to that, jump on it. You know, if somebody's got, I don't know, Tyler, you seem to know about, if you could get a list of calls about what Wellington has responded to, so that data is now organized somehow, if it's easy for you, whatever. But I mean, let's not forget about this stuff, because there's enough people here to do a lot of things and get a lot of things, or get a lot of these different pieces moving forward, so. But right now, we're gonna talk about, 426 River Road, so, go ahead.
Just, so I'll start at the beginning. So last February, we started having odors inside the building. The board of directors decided because we started having, complaints from employees that sleep there overnight, waking up in the morning with headaches and bad taste and stuff like that. Had an air quality study done, they found mold. The town contracted with ServPro to come in and do a mold evaluation, and remediate the building last June. Yeah, by the time everything got done was June.
The initial plan was flood cut up, just to try to get the mold that they thought was just at the bases. When we re-entered the firehouse, the entire firehouse was gutted, because we weren't allowed in there. The entire back walls were gutted because it was everywhere. Multiple people have been in there, you can see the studs where they had mold. So there is a water issue coming in off the back of the building. We know the siding has to be replaced, and the insulation, there is no insulation on the backside of that building. Every contractor that we had talked to, we were gonna temporarily insulate the back wall. Every contractor we talked to says, don't do it. Because you're gonna gain more moisture in there and cause more mold. The town had given us $9,000, that's still sitting. Because we didn't wanna try to find something else, put something else in there that was gonna absorb water. We did drainage work in the back with Public Works. We do have water moving away from the station, to the best that we can get it. The pipes run, they no longer collect, the downspouts no longer collect like they were. So it's actually moving. One bad thing with that property is the as-builts don't actually match anything that is inside of that, laid out inside of that firehouse. We know where the septic is, we know where the water line is, but there's drains somewhere close to Trask Road that we don't know where that is. Stuff like that. The current status of the building is there's no insulation in the back wall, there's no sheetrock, and the studs are open. The studs by the building official will have to come out because there's no moisture barriers under them. Because we have to do that,
Can you get a report from the building official on the status of the building?
yes,
Okay,
I can do that.
can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Is it usable as a garage for the equipment?
That is what we have done, that is what we're doing.
Okay, so we have no issues that way.
And the building official has no issues with that?
Correct.
Okay.
We cannot house somebody in that building. Right.
Yeah, but it is
The
functional
apparatus will
garage.
stay in there.
Okay.
It will function as a garage.
It's being heated or?
It's a heated
It
garage.
is a heated garage.
Does it need to be heated beyond infrared to keep the equipment warm?
It needs to be above 32 degrees.
Well, I understand that, but again, is infrared heating going to be adequate?
No.
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 I don't think so.
We had a project, a CFE project, where we upgraded to a propane boiler, we got new propane tanks, and as soon as that was all installed, we ended up with a mold problem. So the boiler works fine. We kept the building set at about 50 degrees all winter, so we didn't have any issues.
We didn't burn through nearly the amount of propane that we thought. we
Yeah,
would.
unfortunately, it was a mild winter, but
Well, one of the problems with propane is that one of the byproducts is water. If you're burning it inside the building.
Yep.
So the propane heat is functional?
Yes.
It's a functional garage?
yes, a propane boiler.
Okay.
So we replaced the oil boiler.
What we're talking about is
Majority of the
majority
moisture goes out in a boiler, goes
Yeah,
out
yeah,
the stack.
Is that a factual statement?
I'm
What
sorry.
we're discussing then is temporary housing,
Yes. Is to put,
something, I don't know what,
ideally, it would be,
not a camper.
our goal, not a camper.
Right.
Yeah.
Would be to find a way to have something more than a camper, to put both personnel back at that.
Like a FEMA house or something.
Well, I was just thinking, I saw this old house the other night, and they talked about New Orleans.
Yeah,
After Katrina, and they brought, this firehouse they brought in, it was, this was
They have those-
40, 50 feet long.
Yeah,
That was their bunkhouse and their office and everything else.
That would be ideal, the problem is just finding them. So we've gone through the state, through DPH, we've gone through anybody that we can turn wheels to try to find something like that, and we can't.
I would potentially suggest there's a few people in here that have some books in that industry. That
Yeah.
perhaps-
Yeah,
if we better figure out.
You gotta look at the tornadoes out in the Midwest, so.
Grab one before the next tornado.
We did find one, like, we've been looking at, can we put a mobile, like one of the mobile homes that are down in Jensen's or something like that in Mansfield, can we put something like that on the property? But those are, depending on how you get them and how you we have connections to be able to move it. But then again, has anyone contacted Joe Courtney on something federal? We've been, on the federal side, we've been in with, we've been talking with Murphy's office.
Are you talking about temporary housing?
Not temporary housing. I'm trying to find grant
Probably a
money,
good
what
idea.
we've been talking.
Yeah,
See if they can secure. I mean, that's really our focus is to try to get the staff back up to where they belong.
Yes.
And so you can use it as a garage, that's fine. The main problem is housing.
Housing.
So is that true? Is the facility adequate for housing of vehicles?
Of vehicles, yes.
Vehicles and equipment, it's secure, it's
Yeah.
warm enough, it's, okay.
Except for the heat loss on that rear wall that is simply
Yeah, I mean,
one
that's-
piece of tin between the outside.
Right,
and
that's-
the inside.
that's-
Alex, you and I had conversations here and there about, modifying the other station, because you have somebody housed there now. So could you add a room to that building down there, and you have apparatus and 2 people down in that building?
So
For
we
now.
had talked about trying to modify that building. To do it, you'd have to blow a hole in the brick wall to get an exit door. They have to have it, they have to have an exit out. So one of the new things with the code was, you can't exit into the bay.
I mean, that's just a matter of cutting a doorway.
So you gotta cut a doorway, and then it's the environmentals of finding a way to get heat in there, AC in there.
Well, and the fact that it's.
There's no room.
Just built in 1960.
1960.
And
Oh,
it'll be
it's
tin on top of
little,
that.
yeah, there's already.
Yes,
That's
You
a
don't
other,
have the
yeah,
option.
and there's 3 bays.
Oh.
How many
So
people
you'd
do
be
you want a house? How many people
modifying-
need a house?
And you put the both pay people.
Ideally, it would be back at 426 River Road.
Yeah.
Housing people back somehow at 426 River Road.
And that's ideal because of the better
Apparatus and
apparatus
response
storage and response.
We have a much better, it's easier to respond out of there with the ambulance. Fire truck, if we can hit, depending on the side of town, we can hit 84, 74, or 32. We have the best of all 3 worlds right there,
But this solution works with that room off the room and,
Right.
South Lincoln Station.
except we lose a truck.
As the
Please.
Band-Aid.
We lose a truck. Because we have to decide which truck we're not gonna run.
But you have 2, right?
Right, so that's my
2
question.
days, so we'd have an ambulance and AET,
And then-
or the
right.
swamp. So
Cause there's 3 bays, right?
there's 3 days,
Right.
So why couldn't the ambulance be there instead of?
it is there. So we have 1 at each station right now.
What's that, 2?
There's 1 at each
Are we
station.
keeping that second one? I'm
Yes.
confused by that. Is that with a?
It was an ARPA plan, but the plan is to keep that, they generated quite a bit of revenue having it.
What do you call that? What do you call the one in South Wellington? That's
Station 213,
station 213?
even just trying to build a room in there, that building is small. Trying to be in, and being in that building is not adequate. There's no,
Well, the biggest problem you have down there is you don't have the exhaust ventilation.
yeah, there's no ventilation
You start,
system.
you start the truck, you're swimming in.
I don't think we're looking for a long-term solution here.
Mike, go ahead.
Another solution that Chief Moore and I talked about, and this was just something I created in my own head, may not be any more valuable than that, was to take the northmost side of the station that we're talking about, 426 River Road, and putting a wall, which would be basically somewhat down the middle of that last bay. And, capturing behind that wall, capturing enough space to put in a couple of bunk rooms and a day room, and come around the corner as far as the bathroom. So repair the electrical, repair the studs and the sheetrock to get the bathrooms and the shower back, and then come back through that bay with sleeping quarters. And the reason you would do a wall through there is to separate the sleeping quarters from the bays with a fire rated wall and create a hallway. That hallway would bring both of the bedrooms, the sleeping rooms, or even I think we tried an idea with 3 sleeping rooms. And they would all be able to come into the hallway and directly out the side door of the building, having their own exit that's protected by a fire rated wall. And so that was a potential solution to give day room space and sleeping space back into that building. And
But I think that
very rough estimates based on square footage and current construction, it came out to around $100,000, but that was a rough estimate. I don't remember how many square feet it was, but my intent and how I sort of drew it up and mapped it out was to stay under the existing building code requirement that would push us over the 50% requiring upgrading the whole building. And to stay away from that and to be able to keep us for this temporary situation, being able to spend a certain amount of money to get good quarters without having to renovate the entire building. That way, you then have time for the planning process to decide what that whole building should be. Then when you do the whole building, you've done it in a planful way and you've hopefully got the taxpayers to buy in and fund it.
But doing that, Mike, don't you have a a building official issue with that building if you attempt to do exactly what you just said?
Well, I think we have to have a discussion about that, but being a building official myself, I believe I've mapped that out so that we follow the existing building code requirements.
What about the outside?
I mean, I do this every day.
What about the outside sheeting that he gave you, Mom?
So the sheeting on that side is insulated. And so the side of the building that doesn't have the insulation would be the back wall, so we can just stay away from the back wall. There are a couple sections with holes in them that need to be patched or something.
But that doesn't stop the water, well,
I mean, there's still issues on the south side of the building because the gravel grade comes down to the building, and that was made worse when the propane tanks was done. And that, quite honestly, is just a matter of someone getting out there with a machine and pushing the gravel back.
What's
You
the
know,
side of the building you're talking about, as you're facing the forest, the north side, the left?
The north side would be the area we're talking about putting, essentially where the hole was cut to add the third bay into it. You'd sacrifice a lot of that third bay by putting the wall down there, but then, by cutting through that, and you would go up.
Yeah, okay.
So you go up high enough to get a ceiling, so you basically create an enclosed atmosphere.
So you're
Yeah, 'cause that side
you're
doesn't-
putting a box inside that.
You put a box inside
That
that
side of-
uses that door.
That side of the exterior of ours is in good, if I'm not mistaken, it's still in good shape.
It's, the
Right.
bolts, so the front of the building is now masonry, and I think Dave, you can attest to some of this. The front of the building rotted off, including the bottom sills. And we basically had to rip it all down, and we redid it in masonry, years ago. The south side is almost all the bottom bolts, and they, have ripped through the paneling. The back, it's starting to do the same, and even on the north, which actually has a little bit of ground clearance between,
Yeah, it's
the bolts are pulling through, and bottom sills are rotting out.
But that's not a problem that has to be solved before this coming winter, whereas getting people out of the trailer is a problem that has to be solved before, or should be solved before this winter.
Where'd you, and your estimate of 100 grand, you said?
Based on square footage,
Would that, would that put the existing bathrooms back in use?
right, you use the plumbing that's there, you don't change locations, you don't have to jackhammer the floors up or any of that stuff, you put a toilet back on the same flange in the floor. You repair whatever, some of the studs had to go because they were mold damaged, replace the studs. Clean up whatever electrical has to be pulled out and stuck back into a wall, just the minimum that's required to get you back to shower, bathroom, a day room and bunk room.
Leave the bay door there, leave.
Right, because the wall would come up close, but wouldn't actually touch the bay door.
Yeah. Interesting idea.
What
I mean, it's
happened-
the thing, you can sketch it out on a dry erase board easily, what the general idea was, it's just an idea. But it could be,
It's probably more cost effective than pulling in a temporary building.
Is it?
Buy
though?
one, yeah, I don't know.
But then you have to think about what you're gonna do if you actually are gonna do a full overhaul of that building, like, it's just like, okay, that's good now, but then in a year, we still have to do a tent building anyway, would it have been better to just do that?
Right, because at that point, whatever this long-term solution, then we lose the temporary we was built, what do we do?
But you're gonna lose that building when you're renovating it anyway,
Right.
so,
Long-term solution, whatever you buy. you're
or
gonna
if you're
lose
not
it.
renovating, whatever.
You hate to spend that kind of money to,
If you
have
buy
it destroyed potentially, but.
but if you put a trailer there, you gotta run plumbing out to
Right,
it, you
there is-
gotta tie it to sewer.
Right.
I mean, you're gonna spend some money, you'll get close to that $100,000 maybe with a trailer and all the hookups.
Yeah,
Is
no.
there any tax advantage of leasing a trailer as opposed to actually building something that you then
Sell
have
it
to demolish?
afterwards, maybe.
Sell it.
Is there any
Sell it.
sort of, I mean, if you lease the trailer for 6 months or a year, is there a difference in the accounting that might benefit the town somehow rather than spending 100,000 and then carrying out 100,000?
Probably just being able to sell
Yeah.
Or lease it, I guess.
That's what I'm saying, lease a trailer, lease one of those FEMA houses, and, that's even I can't find
it.
them,
There's a huge lot of FEMA trailers typically in Delaware, I believe, and they
Yeah.
auction them off pretty regularly and they go cheap.
Huh.
So you're probably not saving anything leasing, you're probably better off to just buy it
but buy one and then sell it again.
and turn it into a training
So
facility
we-
afterwards.
The camper that is there, town of Wellington purchased that for 13.
You could sell that.
Just under 14.
Right, yeah.
Like, are the FEMA trailers an upgrade from that camper?
Space wise, yeah, and they have
That's
real
space.
size, they have real refrigerators in them and all
Yeah,
that
it's
stuff.
more.
And for that camper, we can only sleep one.
Yeah.
So right now, our biggest hurdle right now, well, they're split up at night. That camper's not big enough to hold two.
Oh, you also have male and female firefighter.
Oh, yeah, male and female, that's the
Other
other.
beer being the camper.
Yeah,
Well, That's our friendly.
That's true.
No, no,
That's an interesting thought. You should, I mean, you should, somebody should. I price it either way, I guess, if that's.
Well, right,
Those are two big
that's
viable
what-
solutions.
I think we have two good courses
That
back
big
in
one-
right now.
Price them out.
To look at the cost, I mean, I'll talk to the building official, find out about exactly what. From town of Wellington, each one of those is gonna develop an inspection of some kind, so I'll talk with him. And, that'll be my homework, and then, I don't know, find out about a trailer.
If it helps to meet down there, I can bring a piece of paper, we can
Yeah, that's
sketch
fine.
it and show him what we're talking about.
He's not a hard guy to get a hold of, he's serving like $4,000 or $5,000. He's gonna, but,
I don't even know who the new guy is.
fresh, and, yeah.
Oh, we're Indian.
Yeah, so, but anyway, talk to Mike, get it on the radar, and Mike's pretty good, and, you know. Get it in there, and then we can, yeah, so that's two courses of action for personnel, which would solve be a temporary solution to the problem. And then, that's a good start.
Yeah, timeframe for something like that. Are we looking at something like this? Duration, maybe 5 years before, a more permanent solution comes into play?
Well, I don't know.
I think.
Do we still wanna be having these meetings 5
However
years
we
from
wanna
now?
work,
No, I'm not talking about having these meetings 5 years from now, but
having a building in 5 years.
when you look at
That's not
everything, Mike, the process,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the accounting, the planning.
getting it through the tax.
Structure.
Getting it past the tax
Building
rate.
the library took almost 5 years.
yeah. The
I can
meeting-
see
Went by getting the drawings and then started construction took a year, you know,
Yeah,
that's 5 years.
couple of years right there.
So we're looking at a duration for a temporary facility of about 5 years, which is probably reasonable.
Probably.
I'll vote for 3. I'll be wrong.
Well, you could,
I'll
no,
vote for 3.
no, I would say you can push it, as always, you can put a fast track on it and push it.
Yeah,
But sometimes you pay for that too.
yeah, you do.
East Street's
Yeah, it's all-
temporary housing
right.
for 20 years for
Yeah.
professors over there.
That temp classroom,
Yeah,
and it's gone now though.
it is.
We just did it. We just finished.
Like, didn't we, well, you did, I think.
1994.
Middle school,
Yeah, we just
all
finished that.
classrooms, the whole school?
Yeah, all those horrible questions.
Yeah.
Does, the Wellington Hill Fire Department, can it play any role in solving some of these problems? Is there any?
Well,
What about house they have?
Wellington Hill is storing
Stay there.
is storing a bunch of material for them.
Okay, so Wellington Hill already involved, is there? any-
They have half our firehouse.
Okay,
Of storage, yeah.
What about that house that's next to the church?
The only problem with that is you can't,
It's a whole residence with showers and bathrooms and.
there's no local area to put apparatus.
Right.
You can put people in there, but where are you gonna park the ambulance?
So you got the fire department building right across the street.
They have stuff.
Part of full.
They
We-
have things.
Yeah, we currently have 6 trucks and 5 bays.
You can't move them around.
I mean.
I think they already
It's not an unreasonable question to ask. That's what we should be doing in this committee, right? We should be trying to,
We're trying to create residential
It would-
space and we have a
it
residential.
would create breaking the lease with the person who currently rents the house, which
I
is.
mean, they did
that's
use
a
it, they
thing.
did use it during COVID,
Right, right.
the staff did.
Right.
The house.
I
Yeah.
vaguely remember, but
Yeah, I lived there
it seems
for-
like a good solution that's right next to a fire department that can have emblems in it.
that's not a bad thought, that kind of makes sense to me. What do you call that? What do you call it? A
Also
rectory?
logistically, I mean, you got people sitting in the houses. and
there were
those come up,
25
proper parking
the
lot,
house
to
and-
get the
Both
ambulance.
of them are the same street address. The house and the church are each side of this place. You should work on splitting.
Oh, yeah.
Where's yours? But if one driveway
Right,
stayed in the
right.
same
Put it
street
down.
address.
Station 13. Empty a bay at the hill, put it down Station 13.
Like I said, in a snowstorm, are the staff gonna run across the parking lot? From the house to get the ambulance? I mean, I guess.
Oh, that's what Karen does now.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh.
It's an
How's
idea.
that feel? You're scratching, you're not.
Close truck for your father to pick up.
If he slips in his own driveway, that's his own fault. You guys slip on the clock, that's workman's comp. I mean,
Alright,
that idea's out the window.
Would the pickup truck fit in that garage? I'm not sure it would. No, it's too tall.
My expedition barely fit in that garage.
Yeah.
Cause you could,
Yeah, the
you could
expeditions.
plow your way across the street. To get an ambulance.
And it's a good idea. My only concern is the response times. With the ambulance.
Because it's further away from the highways.
Because, yes.
But it's just as close to High Chase and it's a lot closer to the senior housing.
I don't disagree with you.
So, and this comes back to why we have to study where our resources should be. What are we closer to? What are we farther away from?
Heat maps. Yeah, very simple.
What is it?
The spreadsheet that Ralph worked
Look
on,
at where all the calls are.
talk to some of
Okay,
this.
is that a map that's readily available?
It can be, but it doesn't satisfy Mike's
No, we'll give us something.
concern about.
We'll give us something.
So we did have, and I shared with Tom, and I did not share with you, because I just wanted Tom and I to, we did create heat maps off of our data. This was our call volume.
From ESO, like out of ESO.
From out of ESO.
Okay.
It was strictly out of ESO for in-town calls only, took away, we did not want to include mutual aid to skew any of the numbers.
Mike has nothing to do.
And we went back, and it had nothing to do with Tom or I. We just happened to have a computer genius that figured out how to do everything on a GIS program.
So it's just raw data. but
It's
we're
raw
gonna
data put into a GIS.
Yeah, is that printable? Could you present that at the next meeting?
I think this stuff is all great to look at to start a conversation. I
Exactly.
think we have to be aware of the fact that there's gonna be questions about which data is used,
Of course.
who interpreted the data, and
But
so
start the
let's start.
conversation. All right, so we've got some ideas. How do we move forward with these ideas? I know that I can talk to the building official about what would be the rules for, what would the regulatory issues be for building housing inside, River Road, the 426 River Road, 613, and then what would be the impact of a temporary housing, more trailer, not a camper, but a regular housing with lights.
Mobile home or something.
Right, kind of a mobile home.
Somebody's gotta find the information on that, what's available, how much they.
Yeah, well, I'll call Joe Cohen and say, hey, we got a problem. Got any ideas? You never know,
I'm
you're guaranteed to know if you don't ask.
Does the
I don't
military
have.
have any of this temporary housing they might want to get rid of?
So I do have a line item to ask. Very capable person in my life, aka my sister, who has a business contact in both Joe Courtney's office, and then she's in the she's in the guard, so she's the boss. So I asked her if she had any thoughts about like what they do for like some temp housing stuff too,
Would you be willing to call her? Talk to her about this?
right now.
No.
I'm gonna text her, I'm gonna text her when I left.
You're on speaker.
Like, she's probably getting my niece ready for bed.
2 minutes, yes.
I'm gonna text her when I left.
No, no, it's
Immediately.
All right, but before the next meeting, you'd be
Oh,
willing
yeah,
to do,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool. That would be fun.
Just as you two
It's
think,
always good
thoughts
to get
on
it
either of
started.
those two things. Wow.
That's great,
I love the time. Come on.
great.
Good, can you get him to come to Memorial Day, cause he's really not wanting to commit to
She
that.
always gets roped into stuff from my neighbor. Anyway, she gets roped into Memorial Day, don't worry.
Yeah,
Andy, you're gonna call Joe Courtney's office?
I would give him a call, why not?
Great.
I've been talking to them for weeks, trying to get him to come speak at Memorial Day, so.
Well, there you go.
And I will
Doesn't wanna
call Tammy Nuccio, our state
There you go.
rep, and our
Perfect.
Senator Gordon, and see if anything available to state level.
That's like I said, you're guaranteed to know if you don't ask.
Can't hurt.
Say something.
But we'd love to hear back from the fire department on, could that residence up there, be available, and at what
Yeah,
point could it be?
we're getting that up. I mean, really think about that.
What
Well, that is available.
up here?
Who do we have to boot out?
Oh, it's their deal.
Who lives?
I'm just trying to think of logistically how.
Sure, there's a lot to think of.
It's probably Plan C. I would
One thing
think.
that comes to mind, I mean, could you, temporary garage, build something to house ambulance, at least on farms? Something
Like a knockoff. Farm.
in adjacent or, attached to the house somewhere.
One of those toy car garages.
There's a whole box, yeah.
You can't have a sign. but-
There you go.
It's not gonna hold any heat, but I'm talking about something.
There's
Yeah.
just a suggestion.
It needs to be.
Yeah, it has to be something, somewhat.
Any foreclosures, Andy, in town?
No bananas, my garage.
Yeah.
Somebody got money, they want to make an.
Alright, so we got some homework to do.
So I did just look on the FEMA auctions website and there is one, just, I found quickly skimming. A FEMA trailer, currently a current bid is $5,000.
Okay,
I don't know where it's gonna end up being.
sure, right, no,
But
that's
just,
fine.
there are some available.
Or the condition.
And a lot of times,
Does it look like?
a lot of times they're available to communities without having to purchase them.
Yeah.
As like a government surplus.
Right, like, would you get?
So you don't
pipeline or
have to,
something?
you don't have to go to the auction and buy it. You can get access to it before it goes to auction.
Okay.
For a community.
Alright, well, I'm sure there are people that know about this a lot more than I do, so I'll try to find one of them. I'll call until I get an answer. Sometime. Alright, so that's one thing, so. You could provide some data from that works compiled, just grassroots, but data on where the point, there are points on a map where all the calls were for what time frame, what years,
We did it last, about 3 years.
3 years, okay, it's fairly credible, that's
The
good.
dispatch center has
I think
been
it's
for
3 years,
17 years. How
Oh.
far do you wanna go back?
Okay. Well, all right, well, it's a place that'll get the conversation started. It doesn't,
if I print those?
Yeah.
Ones I sent you?
Yeah.
it doesn't exactly speak to,
Like I said, it's a start. I do have the same concern Mike
but it
has,
could
you
be
know,
for
with
locations.
with people seeing where the data came. from. Yeah, for this purpose, absolutely.
For discussion part.
Yeah, it's print them out.
You're welcome to check the data, it came from me as well.
How hard would it be for each, chief or your emissaries to get together just a Excel spreadsheet of the equipment? Doesn't have to be, okay. Could you bring those to the next meeting and forward them to me?
What level of equipment?
Yeah,
do
we
you
can
need?
say equipment.
Well, that's a good question. What level of equipment do we need to talk about? Tell me, cause I don't.
Well, I guess, Mike, if you technically need every piece of equipment, if you have truck checks, you can give them copies of those, that's all the equipment.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, no, I'm saying, do we wanna just know about trucks, or do we wanna also know about major appliances like the SCBA air compressor, the washer and dryer? Those items should be
why
considered,
not? Should we put them on different sheets?
the major pieces.
Yeah,
They're involved
I like
with
it.
taxpayer dollars, whether federally or locally.
Yeah,
Put it on the-
and then we as a group can say what our sort of prioritize those as well. You know, trucks and life safety equipment and washing
Yeah, I
and
mean, I don't
dryers.
think we need to know how many spanner wrenches you have or how many axes are on a truck.
Yeah,
The purpose of housing all this stuff.
but it might be important to know, just so you could get an idea of how much square footage that's gonna take, so, but I don't think we're there yet, but
No,
sort of
that's
a
a
gross
later-
inventory sheet.
I think
To speak to Peter, what do we
Yeah,
have?
yeah, his point, you talked about like the contracts and all that stuff, that's all easily available as well. I mean, I don't see why that can't be compiled from before this
Yeah,
meeting.
I would say send them out, because lets everybody have it in their hands.
Town has one. Town has one.
Especially if you guys have like, you guys have a union contract, like, are there things to consider for that too, or?
Yeah,
It lives out there,
It's
labor,
out
their
there.
labor agreement.
Yeah,
Right.
the CBS.
There you go.
Yeah, so
That's an excellent point.
I would have, and this is my opinion, I yield to the gentleman that actually did the negotiations, but I would think that if we were to move anywhere outside of our district,
Right, that's what I'm saying, is like, that's,
that the staff is going to move anywhere outside of their district, that we would have to negotiate that or work their living terms, blah, blah, blah.
That kind of stuff really specified in the
Is it
contract, what part of town you're
No,
living in?
no, it's not, but there is language about sleep time, station, stuff like that, so I don't know, it's not. Would it have to be negotiated or an MOU?
I'd have to look at that and see.
I don't know, and what I don't wanna do is cause anything that's gonna.
Yeah, let's say that affects everything like that. That's what
We have negotiation coming up, they could bring that up also.
Yeah, right.
we'll figure it out.
Well, I would say inundate us with information. Send,
How much you want?
you know, what you
Well, the
have.
contract,
We'll
I think,
decide.
between the departments and the town is the same contract.
It's the same
both
contract,
departments.
okay.
Yeah.
It just has things that are specific to each enumerated in the contract.
And the town has.
How do we
It's
get
not-
that?
The town hasn't, it's.
Yeah, it's public.
All right.
Jerry, do I call?
Derek, do you wanna look for those contracts? They must be on record somewhere.
Mhm.
Fine.
What else did you say,
And they've been emailed about 700 times this too.
Pete, what else did you say to send the contract? You said something, these are a couple of the things you want to see. The
The
You wanted equipment inventory?
deeds for the properties that
Oh,
each,
yeah.
fire corporation has for the properties that they own.
This 426 is also listed as, list AT&T as a co-owner.
That's the tower site.
Tower site.
Okay, but how does that work? Because there's not two properties, there's one property.
I don't believe they are a co-owner of that property at all.
They may be listed as.
But it's listed in the assessor records. as such.
They have equipment
They're paying
there
tax on the.
that's taxable.
That's
They
not, the
don't own
property's not
property.
broken off. It's owned by the fire department.
Yeah.
So they have an outside, a portable shelter, the biggest, significant shelter. And, the fire department actually owns the tower, the fire department owns the land. The only thing they have is taxable equipment up there.
In the shelter on the tower.
Okay.
Pete, I think it may help in your wanting to understand that, of course, the deeds are public record, so there's nothing to hide there, but the contract also addresses that. The contract indicates which pieces of property are privately owned by the departments, has agreed to in the contract, and so I think a lot of your answers are right there. You wouldn't even need to go through the exercise of pulling the deeds. Not that, it's a secret, they're public record, but.
The properties are specified in the contract, you're right.
Yeah, and the contract specifies that the property at 426 River Road and the property at 24 Old Farms Road are privately owned by the individual corporations. And that the contract recognizes those are not owned by the town. It does not recognize the same for down in the village because that is a different ownership, right, in the village?
There's a deed restriction where if it stops being used as a fire station, it comes back to the Hall Foundation.
Right.
They donated the land for them.
Right. And then the contract also says that any capital purchases that are paid for greater than 50% with taxpayer money are property of the town. So when you look at the conversation across the street at 25 Old Farms Road, that would not apply because that was paid for 7/8 with fire department funds. The other 8 was taxpayer funds. So that the 25 Old Farms is privately owned by the corporation.
Which building is that?
That's the church and the house,
Thank you.
the church and the house.
It'd be good to understand the asset list and the contract and understand how it's all.
And the only reason that property is not enumerated in the contract is because it was purchased after the contract was written and it's not, there's no emergency operations happening from there. Right, at the moment.
So to obtain these, we just ask Shannon. Okay,
Yeah, we'll work on that. We'll dig those contracts out and, have them ready for the next meeting. And then really, Corey Gold, you take a picture of this stuff with your phones and if you see.
I did,
Yeah, I know you signed
before they started falling off.
before they start falling off.
Well, do the rest.
And then anything you can do to add more meat and more details to what these are, just send it along. We can, as a group, we'll sort it out. And,
do the contracts have the staffing of each corporation, or is that like a separate document?
To what extent?
The contracts I was just talking about,
Yes.
no, it doesn't get into operational stuff to that level.
So we want to understand how many people work in each fire corporation, how would
Mike,
we know
except
that?
for, I believe there's in the contract, there's requirements. Really hard to provide a yearly roster of
Yes.
personnel,
Right.
including, levels of training every year.
Something like that, I don't remember the exact
That is
language,
the-
right,
that is-
but it doesn't specify how much staff or how many volunteers you have to have in each station or any of that kind of stuff. It's,
I'm trying to understand what the staffing levels are, so we know, understand what the facility we may or may not need. How would I know what that staffing is? Is there like a list of people who work in each department?
Staffing is 2.
No, he's talking about in general, for everybody, right?
Like membership?
Membership list?
Membership or
I
staff?
don't know, you tell me.
Well, you can probably do both. You can get a list of memberships and you can get a list of staff, paid staff. So you have 2 separate columns.
it's predominantly volunteer membership in both departments, and then there's just this piece of paid staff we're always talking about, that's a separate thing, because.
What I'm trying to understand is how many people each facility would house, or facilities like the house.
Right now, you just need to house 2 people.
Yeah,
That's all right now.
That's the question, whether you're talking about planning in the future.
I'm trying to understand the big picture. I
can't tell you
appreciate the 113, I want it resolved right away, and I want to understand like how many fire employees we have.
And that's part of the longer term, I think Tyler's trying to say is that that's a planning effort too. How many members are in the departments, what do we think the future is?
Part of why we're here.
I think all that information would be good to be able to like build into like whatever public minutes or whatever anyway. Like, I feel like a lot of townspeople have the same questions and a lot of like unknowns for them, so there's a lot of like assumptions that are very wrong. So
And if I remember
if
that,
those kind of documents that are pushed publicly, then
And if I remember the reading of the charge, that's really talked about in there. What are we doing now? How do we operate? What are the factors that exist now and where do we think we're going?
Right, that was sort of to make a launch pad for, first, you wanna know what you're doing now and make sure that that's clear to everybody, and then
That's what I was trying to understand.
launch off of that, so.
Right.
Yeah, so if we. So I'm just thinking of next steps, so if we get data on all the things we talked about, we'll get the grassroots list of calls. We'll get the contracts, I'll talk to the building official, what other stuff is outstanding? What other-
Possibly of a building, a temporary building.
Yeah, temporary buildings, we'll make some phone calls, find out about that. I'd like each chief to think really strong and hard about the problem, we'll use that record zone. Who do we have to kick out of that building? You said it's leased right now?
Yes.
Okay, do you know the person?
Yeah, he's a member of both departments.
Okay, all right, so, all right, so that would be kind of a shitty move on our part. but-
Yeah, before we even address that, we would have to make sure that that's logistically gonna work
Yeah,
well for whoever's gonna use it.
sorry.
Whether it be the ambulance, probably the ambulance group. It would have to logistically work really well before we even
I'm
address
gonna order
taking
you
some.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna,
a flip chart.
you have to think that out, because you
Yeah.
don't wanna have
You can stick
the
under
two
the wall.
people that are being paid by the taxpayers to just be there for an ambulance, not a fire truck to take to a call or a rescue truck. That's a problem.
Right.
So they need to take both of them to an accident or a fire. I mean,
Yes.
So Plan C is like.
So what else should we have ready for the next meeting?
How you
Oh,
gonna-
we gotta get a current equipment inventory, so whatever that is, just, if you have it on a spreadsheet, just send it to me on a spreadsheet.
So how is information gonna be disseminated, Andy?
That's a great question.
So are you gonna head it out, like have it out ahead of time for the next meeting?
What
That'd be great, or you
Yeah.
gotta present it the next meeting. I like that all.
I think that we all need, I need time to process stuff, so what I'm imagining is you send it to me at my town address, A Marco Wellington, CPI.gov, whatever it is. Then I'll put that together, and, then I'll send it out to everybody. I got the master list, so to me, that makes the most sense, if you're all comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing worse than reading that meeting.
Right.
I think focusing the communication up to the chair, for the chair to gather and send back out is important for two reasons. One, it keeps us all from having 50 emails and trying to keep track of them all, and we all get 50 to 100 emails a day already, right? So if we focus, all the information that's getting gathered gets sent to the chair, I think that's a much better way to do it. It also avoids or limits the chance that we're gonna get into conversations in email, which is essentially an illegal meeting.
Yes.
It's just a reminder, there are only a few things we can discuss in email when we're not in a meeting, and that is availability for a meeting, like talking about dates, I'm available this day, whatever, that's legal in email. Things like that, you can't discuss the topics or the work of the committee, other than to say, here's the information I gathered, send it in. That, otherwise it's an illegal meeting, it's an FOI violation. So,
Very, very true. Now, I think each department members, they can talk amongst themselves about what to bring to the meeting, but that would be. As
That's
you,
like their own
regarding the data we discussed, whatever we discussed in the meeting.
well, you have working groups, like the fire departments obviously can discuss
Yes, exactly.
in the fire station what their representatives are gonna say.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, that that's
But
okay.
keep in mind, each fire department has a non-majority on this,
Right.
so they wouldn't violate the illegal meeting anyway.
That's
But
right,
any group of this committee that's a quorum can't discuss the business of this committee.
right, that's right. No, very true.
Now, we can discuss one-on-one,
Right, because you're not a quorum.
That's right. We're not-
Right.
but to have a two-way exchange via email with the collective group is,
That would be,
that would be a no.
Correct.
that would be right.
Shannon, do you know if
Sir,
we have Dropbox capabilities
I can find out.
for
Documents.
files?
Yep,
For what?
For
Dropbox.
files, for transferring files,
Either
because
Dropbox or some side of
What
shared
about
drive.
Google Docs? Does that work? I don't know if that works for.
Things are coming in.
I don't like
so many
Google for anything.
different- Stan, I use Google
So
Docs.
do you want, when things get sent to you, do you want to have them CC to me as well? Just, I can keep a running file in case you miss anything, or not that I don't trust you,
I don't trust it. They're
right,
doing that kind of stuff well.
right, this is why I'm saying, maybe just throw my name in that little CC box.
Well, I'm wondering about that. How hard is it to make how hard is it to make an email address? You know, like, could you have emergency
ESFPC,
services?
Whatever at Wellington.
Yeah, could you do an emergency services at Wellington and they just all go there?
Emergency services facility.
Yeah,
I would say be very careful on the emergency services part.
no, I mean, we'll come up
We're
with
gonna
the right
say
name, so,
facility, yeah.
yeah, so we'll get to the right place, emergency services facilities, cause that kind of puts the label as,
Mm-hmm,
we're looking at everything,
Yep.
not just,
ESFBC.
what's that?
yeah,
EFFBC.
Yeah, or whatever, we'll come up with a name that makes sense to everyone,
okay,
and then if everybody just sends stuff to that, and,
or recording secretary at,
yeah, right, but I'd like to be an owner of that.
yeah, yeah,
I'd like
no,
to be a
you,
co-owner,
absolutely.
and maybe Ralph should be a co-owner as vice chair, and then we can, again, we're not monitoring it or editorializing it, we're just.
No, it's just so if something comes
Like-
through and you're
Yeah.
gallivanting or tree wardening stuff,
Some of the data may be too large to process through email.
That's very
Yeah,
possible.
that's why we're
right.
talking about Dropbox or Google
Dropbox.
Docs or something.
Dropbox is a good way to do that, but a
I'll,
lot of storage out there.
All right,
And you can make people either read only, or they can be the owner.
Correct.
yeah,
Whatever.
that's.
So I'm guessing you're gonna check with Phil tomorrow.
I will work on that tomorrow.
On the Dropbox capabilities.
Yeah.
All right, that's a great
Maybe
idea.
he does something already.
That's a great
Phil?
idea, so.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if, you know, if things are happening, we don't know how long this is gonna take, send it to me, I can always send it to the Dropbox. I think if you have something, like you said, story, you have something too big, if you're gonna have it on a thumb drive or something. Shannon's just throwing herself into the mix here, so I guess you're the.
Sign
Be
it.
careful, Shannon.
Well, and that's the thing too, is, you know, if you're out and about and you have stuff on a thumb drive, you can always bring it and I can upload it, so.
Cool. All right, what else do we need to discuss tonight? I think we made some pretty good
What's
progress.
the agenda?
What's that?
What's left on the agenda?
Nothing.
Nothing.
That's it.
Old business.
Wasn't it?
There's no
Conclusion.
adjournment.
We don't have that either.
What kind of access, like, on there was field trips?
Oh, yeah, I got it right
Could
here.
that be like
Good
a
question.
less form, like, is station 13, like, driving by, can I swing in and be like, what's happening here?
Great question.
So we'll open it to anybody, just call us. I can give you my card before we leave, and myself, Trevor, Stewart, Ron, Tyler.
Less of a formal field trip with that?
Yeah, they're typically locked.
Right.
Yeah, it's just they'll open the building up. You own it, go look at it.
That's where I go.
That's a good idea.
I'm heading
Yeah, they
that,
want to-
I'm heading that way on the way out of here, if anybody wants to stop by there, so.
Wait, so 13 is
426 River,
426,
that is the one with the problems.
and what's the one in the old South Wellington, the old hall?
They want to 13.
Ooh, I got it mixed up, I wrote it wrong.
It used to be that way, believe it or not.
That's 230.
Used to be station 213. Up north.
All right, so here's your trivia quiz. What's this one pair?
I don't know.
49.
49, okay. I think I would have,
Yeah.
that's what's on the trucks, right? Isn't it- is that-
Yes.
I know I've seen it about a million times. Probably would have remembered sooner or later. It's Wellington, hell.
Oh, God.
So there we go.
Wellington number
It's on
2.
the hill.
Yeah,
Yeah, Wellington to the hill.
yeah. And you know why we got rid of that, right?
Take one, Pat.
I will, I would suspect.
It was about the 7,000th time, and he's like, you guys are number 2. Like, not anymore. Went to the Secretary of State and changed our corporate name.
I don't know.
Well, the first one was in with the fishing game stuff, right? Wasn't that the original firehouse?
No.
Yeah, thank you, bro. In the back.
Yeah.
It's
Probably Bill, really.
Yeah, but like I said.
At least it's portable.
One place, yep.
Two platters being that fire.
You want one? You
You
want one?
what?
Hey, man, it's not.
Oh, really?
Yep.
All right, anything else? We good? Meeting adjourned.
I move that we adjourn.
I second that.
Aye.
Aye.
8:13.
Thank you, sir.
I'm gonna, kind of put all this together in a little summary and send it forward to all you guys. Thank you for your.